We're here today with Carl Bates, who's our excellent candidate here in Whanganui, and also Haretia Pango, who's doing an amazing job getting up and down a very large electorate and knows this area so well. I want to say to you, Carl, congratulations on all your work. I know how many thousands of houses you've been door knocking on. This is a marginal seat that we are determined to win back, and you're doing a really good job both in driving the candidate vote and importantly the party vote here, which is fantastic. This morning we met with iwi leaders and obviously I've had a chance to meet with some others through the course of the day, but with that, happy to take any questions you may have.
There are reports out that there might be a large number of voting booths across rural New Zealand that aren't going to be open on election day that normally would be open. How concerning is that?
Well, I haven't seen those reports myself. It sounds concerning. Obviously, there are issues for the Electoral Commission, and it's important that they're doing everything they can. Over the last 3 years, I presume they're incredibly well organised and ready to go for election day.
Yeah, the Electoral Commission is saying that there's staffing issues and they haven't been able to staff these voting booths like they would have been in the past. I mean, that could have a pretty big impact on.
Yeah, look, it's the first I've heard of those reports. I'd need to understand exactly what's happening there. But again, we have an Electoral Commission to do one job, and that is to set ourselves up so we have free and fair elections each and every 3-year period. And I would hope that they're ready to go.
There was issues with the easy vote cards as well. I mean, is this a systemic failure within the Electoral Commission, and do they need to be really looked at after the election period?
Well, look, I seriously hope not. I mean, again, the delay of getting easy vote cards out to people, we know what the date has been. The date has been what it has been for a long period of time. It's coming, and I presume that they're getting organised, and they are fully organised and ready to go. That's their job.
What message did iwi leaders have for you this morning?
Oh, it was just a good chance to talk about. I've been meeting with iwi leaders over the last 6 months, just quietly in small groups, and just talking about how we want to work together in partnership and how we can, particularly, devolve and locally deploy resources to solve a number of challenges that each individual community has. And so it was fantastic to meet with them, to go down and actually see a site where they want to build essentially a wellbeing centre based around the marae with Crown services there, to see all of that development as well. It's really exciting.
Was your wish to get rid of the Māori Health Authority brought up at all?
We discussed that very openly, and I've been discussing that very openly with iwi leaders. And again, what we're interested in and where we have good levels of alignment is that local iwi want to deliver and deploy services and resources on the ground in their local communities, and that's what we believe as a party that's built on localism and devolution, and that's what we have in common, and that's what we're working together on.
Do you want to preserve a Māori voice at the table? Because a lot of that was established to ensure that, because that voice is often not heard or represented. How will you ensure that voice is represented?
What we're all aligned on is we want improved outcomes for Māori and non-Māori. We want improved outcomes for Kiwis, but in particular in my conversations with iwi leaders, it's actually about how do we actually deliver better outcomes, how do we make sure that we're working together really well, how do we actually empower local iwi organisations to deliver those services that we so desperately want delivered, because they do often a much better job than government can.
My question was about maintaining a voice that will be heard at a government level.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I mean, we want to work in partnership with Māori across the country. We just have a different way of going about it, believing that we don't need to do that centrally through massive bureaucracies. We do believe that those resources can be forward deployed into iwi organisations that are often so much better placed to deliver those services.
What do the iwi leaders say to you about the National Party's position around co-governance being specific to natural resources and not extending into public services beyond that?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that as well in all the meetings over the last 6 months, and we explain, we talk about our position, we talk about it very openly, very upfront, and essentially it's saying we want to continue the work of Chris Finlayson and Bill English, and that's how we see it. But we are very united on getting improved outcomes for Māori, and also powering up iwi organisations locally on the ground, believing that that's the best way to deliver those services.
What do you mean you're going to work with?
What do iwi leaders say to you when you say that it won't go beyond natural resources, given the inequities in health, education, justice, all those other areas? What is the iwi leaders' comments to you about the fact that you're not prepared to have those co-governance arrangements go beyond natural
Yeah, they're less
resources?
hung up, some of the conversation, less hung up on the actual word. What we are, but to be very clear though, we are going to deliver public services through iwi organisations. We're just going to do it in the coherence of one single public service system. And so what we're saying is that we're going to use our iwi leaders, our iwi organisations, who are, as we've seen, whether it's been cyclone recovery, whether it's been delivery of education, of particularly Māori health outcomes, they need to be powered up, scaled up to be able to go off and do that job, and we're going to do that in the context of having one single healthcare system, we've talked a lot about education, for example, in these conversations, and the removal of charter schools, for example, I don't think has been a good thing. Those are things that we can deliver innovation within the coherence of one system.
Do you think whānau order is a form of co-governance in terms of it's a Māori organisation or iwi or provider working with the Crown to deliver a service? Do you see that as a form of co-governance?
That's what we want to do more of. We don't call it co-governance, we just call it delivering services through Māori organisations to improve Māori outcomes. The word co-governance has been taken out of the context, as I've said before, and that word was specifically used in the context of treaty settlements and has been taken and imbued into the delivery of nationalised public services.
So
that is very different.
Do you not see, that's kind of at odds because if your position is that co-governance should be specific to natural resources, which is what Tona Potaka told me for a piece this week, and you're now saying that whānau order and the way that it provides health services is a form of co-governance.
No, I didn't say that. I said it's a delivery mechanism by which we get services to Māori across the country. You've taken the word and assumed that it can just jump across to the delivery of nationwide public services, and that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is actually partnering and working with Māori, as we did in the previous national government, to deliver services to Māori to improve outcomes, and that's the means by which we deliver those ends, which are so important. So we want to have we're not up for two separate systems. We'll always have one system of education, one system of healthcare, but we will have innovation within that and delivery partners within that, whether they're iwi or community-led organisations to deploy. And I want to see that scaled up more, and I want that powered up more to deliver that. But that is done locally and it's done on the ground. It's done in a devolved way with partners that can actually secure outcomes and results.
You mentioned before, you used the name Chris Finlayson and Bill English. Are they going to be somehow involved if you win government in the sort of co-governance structure that you were outlining?
Well, look, I mean, James Christmas is a very good friend of mine. I'm very pleased to have him on our list here as a board list nominee in the National Party. James worked obviously very closely with Chris over that period of time. That philosophy, that approach will continue. That's very important to us. We think that has led to great gains and benefits for Māori and non-Māori, and for the relationship between Crown and Māori. So that mode will continue. That's very much what we imagine. The challenge over the last few years, as I've said before, is we've had a government under Jacinda Ardern and Chris Hipkins that took a word that had some meaning understood to it, and then carried it across the line to something else and imbued it with something else, and as a result has lost all the New Zealanders and not taken New Zealand with them.
James Christmas isn't particularly high up on the list, though. Are you worried that there's a risk he doesn't get in and can't do that well?
I'm very confident he'll get in.
Are you worried that the National X bloc is losing a bit of momentum as we head towards the election?
Well, what I can tell you is I lead the National Party, and we're getting a great reaction across the country. As you well know, over the last few weeks, and frankly for most of this year, we have been making big efforts to come into marginal seats. This is, I think, the third or fourth time I've been to Whanganui, even this year. I've been to Otaki, we've been to many, many places up and down the country where marginal seats are, and we're getting good reception and good movement. But again, my message very strongly to New Zealanders is we're now a week out from the election, and what happens next is really up to them, and that's why I've been encouraging them to party vote national.
What's your internal polling showing you?
Again, we don't discuss our internal polling.
The Polar Polls gives National Act a 13% chance of getting over the line by itself. That's obviously fallen down a lot over the last weeks, and why do you think that is?
Again, I'm focused on the National Party, and I can tell you we've got good momentum in the National Party. But the important thing is I'm making an outreach, and I have been saying this now deliberately. If you're an undecided voter, if you voted formerly for Labour, you may never have voted for National before, but you're unhappy with the direction, and actually the government has failed to deliver anything for you, then come across and put your vote behind National. But you've got to step up to the plate and actually vote for the change that you want to see happen.
We've gone out through the Vote Compass poll, and it shows that a lot of New Zealanders believe people are committing serious crimes. They're not being held to account. They should be getting sentenced, receiving prison sentences, and they're not. Are you surprised by that?
Not surprised at all. That's what the message we have received for over the last year has been. People are not feeling safe in their own homes, their own businesses and their communities. It's a primary right of a citizen to make sure the government keeps them feeling safe and being safe. And what that is, the reality is that people have had serious criminal offences and violent offences have ended up actually on much weaker sentences, whether it's been home detention even. And so what we need to say is we want to limit the discounts that judges can actually actually give, so we actually get sentences that actually befit the crime.
And you want to change the Sentencing Act too, though, don't you?
Correct. We want to make sure that we can limit the sentencing discounts that judges are giving, because we have seen some perverse outcomes where people should be 3 years in jail for violent crime and end up on 5 months home detention, and that is not acceptable.
You've also said that you think that judges...
Sorry?
You've also said that on ZB you said you believe judges were hiding behind the Sentencing Act. Can you elaborate on that?
No, what I'm saying is judges are discounting sentences in a way that we don't think ends up with the right outcomes, and I think the vast majority of the public would feel that as well. So we're limiting the discounts by which judges can discount sentences.
Is that what you're referring to when you
Correct.
said that they were hiding behind?
Yeah.
Do you expect your social media team to behave in an honest manner?
I've got a fantastic social media team. I don't know whether you've seen any of my videos on TikTok, but I'd check them out. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I've talked about one with Mark Mitchell recently, where he went out to Parliament, met with some people who were whānau of gang members, and yet you portray them as gang members when they quite clearly told them that they weren't. So, I mean,
Well, look, I think the sad thing is that, you've got Harry Tam from the mongrel mob going up and down the country. There's been 10 events that I think he's organised, signing people up to vote, but also endorsing the Labour Party. And, in Australia it's interesting where rules like we're proposing have been introduced and the gangs are actually wanting to form their own political party. Well, here in New Zealand they don't have to do that, they just support the Labour Party. And that just says to us, they know life's going to be tougher under a national government, that's what's going to happen.
But it's okay for Mark Mitchell and your social media team to misrepresent.
Again, what I'd say to you is that the message is very clear. We're going to be tough on gangs, and gang life is not something we want young people to be pursuing, and we're going to make life uncomfortable for them.
But you've seen gang members where they aren't gang members. I mean, misrepresenting who they are.
I'm not sure, I wasn't there, but what I can say is that the message to gang members across New Zealand, which is the important one, when gang membership is up 70% and there are 9 gang members for every 10 police officers, is that life is going to get tough. Because gangs, let's be clear, are not nice people. They want all the rights of being a Kiwi, but they're not prepared to stand up and take the responsibilities. And as a result, we need to make sure that we send the right message.
Do you think you might have to dip into your 9.9 billion unallocated operating expenditure and your 8 billion capital to maybe build a new prison by the end of the forecast period?
No, because essentially this is a government that's had one goal only in the crime space, and it's been a 30% reduction in the prison population.
I'm not asking you about that.
So there is plenty of capacity in our existing prisons, because already prison numbers are down over 20%.
But it's like 8,200 odd at the moment, and you're anticipating an increase of, I can't remember the exact figure, about 1,000 more prisoners.
Yes, there is no need to build a new jail because we have plenty of capacity in our existing jails, because the government has been emptying the prisons of our prisoners.
Can I just ask some questions on the
Yes, John.
Pacific
Yeah.
team? What's your rationale for keeping the Ministry of Pacific Peoples, given you want to also scrap things like the Māori Health Authority?
Oh, look, my view has been, that's a new ministry and it's been performing a role to advocate for Pacific peoples, and I think that's been a good thing for government.
ACT wants to scrap it. If they come to a coalition negotiation table and demand that you scrap it, will you acquiesce?
Again, our position very strongly is I've been supportive of the Pacific People's Ministry. I haven't been supportive of the management of it. I think when you have a $40,000 farewell, I think that's insane. But what I just say to you is that, supportive of the ministry.
And Dawn raid survivors want all political parties to commit to an amnesty. Labour's sort of rolled out a policy in that. Is that something that you would also
do? Not support that at all.
Why not?
The reason very simply is that we support legal migration to this country, and one of the first things a country has to do is protect its sovereign borders. And actually it's very unfair for people who have spent years sitting in a process and in a queue waiting to get processed by Immigration New Zealand. They are legal migrants. It's a process we have in this country, and it's important it's upheld.
Last couple.
Okay, I've got a Jenna. Chris Hipkins says the tables are turning and Labor's going to win. What do you reckon?
Well, look, sounds great. Chris Hipkins, for the first time, might be being a bit positive. But look, that is not, I think everybody across this country can see, if you honestly think Labour, Te Pāti Māori and the Greens is the way forward for New Zealand, I appreciate he's got to be optimistic, he's got to put a brave face on it and do all he can. But, New Zealanders want change. New Zealanders want change. He's had 6 years. He has had 6 years. He's had 3 years with an absolute majority, and he has failed to deliver for New Zealanders. And everyone knows another 3 years of Chris Hipkins with 2 leaders from Te Pāti Māori and 2 leaders from the Greens all thrown into that will be an ungodly mess. It will continue to take New Zealand backwards. It's time for a change. It's time for a national government, and that's what we're going to do.
Are you running out of steam?
No, I'm fired up, ready to go. Don't you worry about it.
Okay, about social media, you put videos out falsely claiming the average family with kids is going to get $250 a week. How much? What's your response to that?
Well, I'm very proud of our tax plan because we're delivering tax relief to low and middle income New Zealanders, and it's up to $250 for average household family. It's up to $150 for a average household family without kids. It's up to $50 for an average income earner here in New Zealand. And I just would encourage everyone, because I really appreciate the questions, because every time you ask me, I just can say that we've had another 30,000 people sign up and go and look at our tax calculator, because everyone's individual circumstances are different. And the fact that over 300,000 Kiwis have jumped on, looked at the tax situation, and can work out precisely what it means for them is what I'd encourage everyone to do.
Is that 300,000 Kiwis or up to 300,000
It's
Kiwis?
It's over 300,000. It's at least 300,000 Kiwis, Jason.
What's the strategy in the last one?
Look, it's just continuing our plan, and we've been following a plan from the beginning of the year, and we continue to roll forward with it, which is to make the case to New Zealanders that this election is all about the economy. The economy is not just about dollars and cents and numbers and economics. It's actually about people, and it's about the thing that we have to do, job number one, to make people's daily lives better. The economy being stronger means that we can invest more in public services and get the standard of services that we all expect and want to have going forward as a country. It's also the way we get to restore law and order and strengthen our police.
Are you hoping to charge around the country in the last week? Or?
Yeah, we've got plans. I mean, every day we're in a different town and city across New Zealand, and we've got very specific objectives as to where we're going and why we're doing what we're doing. But we've got to keep going and going and going. We've got a great team. We're in good heart. We've got great energy, and we're really excited about the next 7 days.
Can I just
Was it
quickly
a
ask, you've got
strategic
at
call
least,
to say you're going to work with Winston?
Sorry?
Was it a strategic error to make the call that you were going to work with Winston?
Well, I don't want to work with New Zealand First. I've made the case very strongly to say I want everybody to understand how important this election is, to party vote national. It's a consequential election. Even if you haven't voted for national before, vote for national. We're going to govern for all New Zealanders. Beyond that, my strong preference is to have as fewer moving parts as possible. A simple two-party coalition government, I think, with National Act would be good. It would be in New Zealand's best interest. And all I've said is, in order to avoid 3 years of chaos from Te Pāti Māori, the Greens and Labour, I would then at least try and pick up the phone and have a conversation with New Zealand First.
can I just quickly ask, you've
Sorry.
got, at my count, you've got 4 new ministers that you have announced, mental health, hunting and fishing, tech and
Space. Mm-hmm.
Are you planning to remove 4, or are you adding 4 ministers into your ministry if you're in government?
We'll work all of that out on the other side. We won't be getting into that now because we need to win an
But
election.
you'd potentially have more bureaucracy if you just add them.
There won't be more bureaucracy, there'll be less bureaucracy under my government, so we're clear. It's pretty perverse when we've had a government add 14,000 more public servants to Wellington and increase a consulting and contracting budget that spends now almost $2 billion. So there'll be less bureaucracy under a national-led government, but there will be clearer focus around some of those agendas. Yes.
Why aren't you visiting Dunedin during this campaign?
Well, I have been to Dunedin.
Not during the campaign?
Not during the campaign. I don't think I have been through the campaign, but I had been just before the campaign kicked off.
But why?
And I've
Yeah.
been to Dunedin several times.
Is it because Michael Woodhouse, with everything that happened there, that you'd be weird walking around markets with him?
No, absolutely not. I've been on campus down there with Michael before.
Before the campaign, though? Why
Yes,
not
but
during the
understand
campaign?
we've been in campaign since the beginning of the year, and so we have had a place. We want to try to get as many places as we possibly can across New Zealand, I've been to Dunedin several times. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Progress
All right.
about,
Thanks so much.
Paying out for extreme weather events. How's it?
Sorry, mate.